Hey everyone, Chen here bringing you guys the long-awaited akshan rune guide for 2025. Now, I did do one before, and generally speaking, runes don't change, but this season, there is a new rune actually in the mix that does change the runes and how you want to play akshan. So, in this video, we're going to go over every viable rune you can go, and finally talk about when you should go PTA versus Electrocute. Without further ado, let's start with the most stock standard page. This is going to be your standard PTA page. It is PTA, Presence of Mind, Legend Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and then the mini trees will generally stay the same. So let me explain this page. This is your bread and butter auction page. If you don't know what you should go, you can always go this page. It is never bad, okay? So let me talk about some customizations you can do depending on playstyle. Generally speaking, these small customizations don't really change how you play or change, much. It's just preference, okay? I want to really hammer that in. A lot of runes is preference. There's a bunch of auction mains that go different runes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. It is just strictly how you want to play auction. So first preference is Triumph. If you enjoy and have good mana usage and you don't feel like you ever run out of mana, Triumph is just going to be better than POM. Generally speaking, I prefer to have POM because when I go in and if I get a kill, if I don't have enough mana to use my E resets to get another kill or get outs, that's like one of the worst feelings when playing auction. So I prefer POM just for that rare scenario where it does matter, but I can understand some people, maybe you just don't use abilities a lot and you use very high value abilities. You can go Triumph for that additional value, right? Second thing you can change, Legend Alacrity, that's a not a thing you can change, but Coup de Grace and Cut Down are things you can change. Now, I'm not much of a math guy when it comes to League. I don't know which one's fundamentally better. Generally speaking, I think both of these are fine. Cut Down probably slightly weighs in the edge just because dealing 8% more damage while they have 60% HP, that's just going to universally be good, right? But I don't think there's too much to think about. You can go either or. I will note, though, going Ignite, you will actually have more synergy with Coup de Grace. So if you do go Ignite, Coup de Grace does have slightly more synergy with that. But once again, strictly preference, just do whatever. I personally go Coup de Grace most of the time. And then secondaries, there are some things you can change. Shield Bash and Bone Plating is probably the best thing to take. Bone Plating is a no-brainer. When you're entering early game team fights with Bone Plating and you just want to EN, that Bone Plating will actually soak a bunch of damage and allow you to do that. And then Shield Bash, that's a no-brainer as well. His passive grants you a shield, and being able to EN, proc that passive, proc that shield, and then your next basic attack deals additional damage, that is going to help you out a lot. Alternatively, you can go Bone Plating Overgrowth. This is something that last season I did a lot. I do think Shield Bash, giving you that slightly more damage does actually matter. So personally, I would go here. And then obviously Second Wind is an alternative you could do as well. Let's say you're into control mage matchups, into a lot of poke heavy champions. Second Wind, you can go. I still go Bone Plating though, because you can play around Bone Plating and utilize this the best. Alternative secondaries you can go is Domination Tree. You can opt for Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter or Relentless Hunter. This is going to be your rune that you go if you absolutely want to smurf and absolute fist your enemy. This is your most max early game setup besides an alternative first tree that I'll speak about, but this is going to be, with PTA, your most early game damage if you're looking to snowball heavily. And the last tree, we're going to skip Source. There are some niche things that, you could use to do. Koreans used to go like Absolute Focus Scorch. I'm personally not a big fan of it, and I wouldn't suggest you guys do it. With the addition of Axiom Arcanist, this rune's actually interesting. I don't think it's necessarily optimal, but it is pretty fun to go some sort of like either crit or lethality and have your ult do a bunch of damage with Axiom Arcanist. This has niche instances where it's good. Let's say you're into a team fight with a bunch of squishies, but they have so much CC squishy champs where you just want to basically be an ult bot. I can easily see Absolute Focus and Axiom Arcanist be decent, right? But the last tree I do want to talk about is Inspiration. This is going to be your setup if you are looking to scale. So generally speaking, it's Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight. This is your stock standard PTA scaling rune. You want to go this if you're into a free matchup that you don't really need extra offensive or defensive, right? And you can just freely scale and get away with a ton of value. Alternatively, you could go Biscuit. This is like in the middle. So Biscuit You're still looking to scale, but Biscuit allows you to get a little bit more combat just by getting more HP and staying in lane longer. And then lastly, you can go Jack of Trades as well. I know some Akshan mains use this. I personally am not a massive fan of it. Okay, last tree you can go is Inspiration. So the Inspiration tree is going to be your scaling tree. You want to go this if you're looking into a free matchup that you can play, and yeah, you're able to scale pretty freely. The rune goes as follows. This is going to be your stock standard rune. You go Magical Footwear because Boots isn't really needed on Akshan early game. And then Triple Tonic gives you insane amount of value. It plays really nicely with RFC. For example, RFC max range, you want to have your W max, right? Because that is an interaction with Akshan. And then the Lax Elixir of Skill, you get your W max at level 17 as opposed to 18. So that's very important. This is your stock standard. There are alternatives. For example, Biscuit, you can go Magical Footwear and Biscuits if you are in, let's say, a little bit of a harder matchup that's you want to go scaling, but you don't want to commit too hard to, like, let's say, just a stock standard rune. You can choose for Biscuit. That'll help you a little bit in lane. And then also you can go Boots with Jack of all trades. This will help you. It used to be a thing where you rush tier 2 Boots. It activates Jack of all trades, and then you can, you know, get AD for basically going Merc Treads. But nowadays, I mean, if you want to go, you can. I personally don't like it, though. If I'm ever going Inspiration, these are the 2 runes I go. Now we finished talking about PTA. Let's talk about the new rune that you can go in 2025 and why people ask me, Chen, when do you choose what? That is going to be the Electrocute page. So the Electrocute page goes as follows. It is Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Grizzly Mentos, Treasure Hunter, and then secondary is generally going to be Presence of Mind with Cutdown. The reason why Electrocute is now viable and not viable before is because of a buff they did to make this do an absurd amount of early game damage. You are basically going Electrocute to proc an early game trade where you auto E, Electrocute, your E swings, you do a bunch of damage. It is going to do... There's a lot of times where I do 3/4 of mage's HP because of Electrocute, right? So obviously Sudden Impact pairs really nicely with what I just said. Grizzly Mementos, I mean, none of these options are good. I wish Eyeball was still in the game, but none of these options are good at all. So you just go Grizzly. Doesn't even matter. And then Treasure Hunter, you can also go Relentless Hunter. I personally prefer Treasure Hunter to keep scaling because this is an early game setup. And then secondaries, once again, everything I spoke about, right? Presence of Mind, Cutdown's fine. You can go this if you're into aggressive stuff. And then if you're looking to scale with Electro, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So generally, I'm just using these 2 trees, right? And this is going to be your standard Electrocute setup. Now, time to answer, when do you go PTA? When do you go Electro? I've always answered this with the same answer, basically. Go Electro if they're squishy, go PTA if they're tanky. What does that mean? If you're against a champion, like let's say Galio, he is going to build resistance. He's going to be just a natural big boy that you can't really have much value with Electrocute, right? So that matchup, it's fine to go PTA. If you're against a mage, for example, that builds, you know, Ludens, that builds Blackfire Torch, go Electrocute, right? And into assassins, you can go Electrocute. Into some assassins, there are instances where PTA can be better. For example, let's say LeBlanc, right? She has a clone. That PTA mark actually makes a difference. So into LeBlanc, for example, this would be a matchup I would go. Or this would be a rune that I would go into LeBlanc. Because LeBlanc has a clone in which my PTA, having that mark to know which one's the real and which is the fake, that actually does matter. So there are small instances, but generally speaking, a good rule of thumb, if they're tanky, go PTA. If they're squishy, go Electrocute. Anyways, that is all the runes. None of these are viable at all. I mean, for fun, we can talk about First Strike. This is not really viable, but if you want to go full scale and just send it, you can go First Strike. But once again, generally speaking, it's just Presence, PTA, and then Electrocute as the 2 runes you want to go for Akshan in 2025. Thank you for watching.